You know we all want to be healthy, right? But what does that really mean? And more importantly, how do we actually get there? It turns out it's not just about dodging a cold here and there. It's about building a powerful, proactive system for lifelong wellness. All right, so let's jump right in. We're going to break down this whole health playbook into 5 key sections. First, we'll talk about the overall strategy. Then, we'll dive into your body's amazing natural defenses, how we can actually train them, and we'll look at a real-world example of that in action. And finally, we'll cover the fuel that makes the whole thing run.
Okay, first things first. We have to establish the game plan. Before we get into all the nitty-gritty, we got to understand the big picture. So, what exactly is health promotion?
See, at its core, health isn't something that just happens to you. Health promotion is all about you taking the reins, making choices, and actively shaping your own well-being for your entire life. It's really about empowerment.
So, how does that empowerment actually work in the real world? Well, it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all deal. It's actually built on 3 different levels of prevention, and each one is designed for a totally different stage of your health journey.
This is so important because it shows that prevention is a whole strategy. Primary prevention, that's your frontline defense, stopping problems before they even start. Think good nutrition, safety rules, that kind of thing. Secondary is like your surveillance team, catching problems super early. And tertiary, well, that's your management crew, helping you handle existing conditions to keep you living your best life. It's a framework that covers every possible scenario.
Now, this whole prevention strategy relies on our body's own incredible defense force. I want you to think of it like a personal army, on duty 24/7 just to protect you. And understanding how it works is the key to keeping it strong. So, what even is immunity? Well, it's basically the biological process that acts as your body's internal security system. It's always on patrol, identifying threats, and taking them out before they can do any real damage. It is your natural-born defense against disease. When it's running like a well-oiled machine, your immune system has 3 huge jobs. First, it's the bouncer at the door, keeping nasty invaders out. Second, it's the cleanup crew, clearing out old, damaged cells to make way for new, healthy ones. And third, it's like a quality control inspector, spotting and removing mutated cells that could turn into something dangerous, like cancer. But you know, the system isn't always perfect. It can go wrong in 2 opposite ways. On one hand, you can have a suppressed response, which means your defenses are too weak, leaving you open to infection. But on the other hand, you can have an exaggerated response, where your defenses go into overdrive and start attacking your own healthy cells. This is what's happening with things like allergies and autoimmune diseases. Okay, so if our immune system is an army, how do we train it? How do we make it stronger and smarter? Well, there are basically 2 fundamental ways our bodies learn to fight back. Right, so there are 2 ways we get immunity. Active immunity is when your body does the hard work. After it's exposed to a threat, it builds its own long-lasting defenses. Think of it like your army going through basic training and getting real combat experience. Then there's passive immunity. This is when you're given ready-made defenses, like what a baby gets from its mother. It's super effective, but it's more like getting a temporary bodyguard. It doesn't last forever.
So let's look at primary prevention and active immunity in action. The single most powerful, most targeted example of this is vaccination. This is where the playbook really comes to life.
But first, to really get the strategy behind vaccines, we need to know the enemy, right? Germs spread in different ways. Some, like the flu, travel in these bigger droplets that fall out of the air pretty quickly. But others, like measles, can just hang out in the air in these tiny little particles for hours. And that difference is why we need different strategies.
Now look, the point here is not for you to memorize this chart. The key is to appreciate the incredible strategy behind it. This schedule is a carefully planned defense, designed to give kids protection at the exact moment they're most vulnerable and when their immune systems are most ready to learn.
This quote just sums it up perfectly. A vaccine is basically a flight simulator for your immune system. It gets all the training it needs to recognize and fight a specific enemy, but it gets to skip the real dangerous battle. It's an absolutely brilliant strategy. Okay, so we've got our proactive plan, we've trained our internal army, but any army, no matter how well trained it is totally useless without supplies. And that brings us to the final and maybe most crucial piece of our playbook, nutrition. Now, that might sound a little complicated, but think of it like this. Nutrition is the logistics chain for your internal army. It's the science of getting the exact right materials to your cells so they can build defenses, repair damage, and launch an effective attack.
Without the right fuel, the best trained army in the world can't fight.
So what does that ideal fuel look like on a dinner plate? This visual from Harvard gives us a fantastic blueprint. The goal is all about balance. You want half your plate loaded with colorful fruits and veggies, about a quarter with whole grains, and the last quarter with healthy protein. It's a simple but really powerful guide.
But what happens when that logistics chain breaks down? You know, suboptimal nutrition doesn't just cause problems down the road, it can weaken your immune system's readiness right now. And probably the most common nutritional challenge we see in kids today is obesity, and it's so much more than a weight issue. It's a state that can compromise the very defenses we've been talking about. And this isn't just some vague idea. In medicine, there's a very clear line. A child is considered to have obesity when their body mass index, or BMI, hits the 95th percentile or higher compared to other kids their age and sex. That specific number is what triggers real clinical concern and action.
And it's so important to remember that our nutritional needs are always changing, especially when we're growing. I mean, think about it. You go from the perfect nutrition of breast milk to introducing solid foods, and then later on to the massive energy and iron you need for an adolescent growth spurt. Every single stage demands a totally different supply strategy.
So, when you put it all together, here's the big takeaway. Real health isn't about focusing on just one thing. It's a whole system. It needs a proactive plan. That's your health promotion. It relies on a well-trained defense force. That's immunity. And it runs on high-quality fuel. That's nutrition. When all three of those pieces are working together, the whole system just works. And that's the thing. By understanding this playbook, you are now empowered to take control. You've got the blueprint, you know the tools. So, really, the only question left is, what's one proactive step you're going to take for your health this week?